Everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on the Cosmere SMP. In this episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's been quite a while since we played around on the server, so I thought that we would start off with talking about some of the updates and also getting started on a new project idea. So, the new project is going to be building a kind of new base, I guess. I don't know if it's really a base, but I just wanted to do a new build. Um, I've been thinking a lot about, different spaces in the Cosmere that would just be interesting to show on a Minecraft world. And one of them that kind of jumped out to me was Karbranth, just because the visual of that city nestled in between like a fissure in the rock, and we actually have a sketchbook page that shows what it looks like, at least in Shalon's mind. I thought that would be a good build. So I'm actually going to go ahead and cut right here, and we're going to do a time lapse showing some of the work that I did to kind of prepare an area, and then we're going to talk about plans for that area. Now, during the time lapse, I thought that it would be interesting to do, some people when they do time lapses, they'll show, they'll like play music or they'll have a chat. I thought that I would do a little bit of a rant today. So this rant is going to include Stormlight Archive spoilers, specifically Rhythm of War spoilers. So if you have not finished reading Rhythm of War, I mean, why are you watching Cosmere SMP if you're not fully up to date on the Cosmere? I say that as someone who has not finished all the Wax and Wayne books out. But so I'm going to go ahead and leave a timestamp on the screen to tell you when to come back. That'll be after the time lapse. That'll be after my little rant. But anyways, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move into that time lapse right now. And yeah, so the rant that I have for you guys today is specifically to do with the research that Navani was doing into light. And even more specifically than that, when she passed the light coming from Stormlight through a prism and looked at the spectrum. In the book, I feel like this was a really big missed opportunity that Brandon could have done so much better. So, to give a little bit of background, I am a high school physics teacher in my normal everyday life. I've been teaching for about 10 years now. I've taught chemistry, I've taught physics, and one of the things that comes up a lot in teaching that content is something known as the emission spectra. Essentially, when you take any element and you excite the electrons in that element, as they fall back down to their ground state energy level, they emit light. And the light that each element emits is very specific. It's a fingerprint, it's a signature for that element. Now, the reason that I need to have that as background is because the way that Brandon described the spectrum of Stormlight, he described it as a full, complete spectrum. So going all the way from red to violet, with, for Stormlight at least, with a slightly wider band of blue light. And that physically doesn't make sense. You cannot have two rainbows that have different widths of light. You either, well, not you either, you always have the same widths of each individual color, what we would call, because those are associated with the actual wavelength of the electromagnetic wave. And you can't have those wavelengths associated with other colors just because they're coming from a different source. Now, I understand it's fantasy, it's magic. We can just wave our hands and say it works because it works. But I feel like there was a real missed opportunity. I feel like that Brandon really could have done it, using the idea of an emission spectrum. So I'm going to put an image of an emission spectrum, or a few emission spectra, up to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So for each element, you have specific colors of light that are emitted. So I think it would have been really, really cool if you had, let's say Navani was doing her experiments with diamonds, so with chips, with clear chips. And you have a clear chip with stormlight in it, and you have a clear chip with life light in it, and a clear chip with void light, or war light, or tower light, or what have you, whatever kind of light. Diamond is carbon, and so excited carbon atoms should have the fingerprint of excited carbon atoms. So we should see that spectrum for carbon. But if overlaid on top of that spectrum, you also had a spectrum that was specifically associated with stormlight, or with life light, or with void light. You could have a spectrum that has that carbon signature, but also has additional bands of light in different areas of the spectrum. So a lot of green light for life light, a lot of blue light for storm light, a lot of violet light for void light. I think that would have been just a much more physically cohesive way of integrating that idea of each kind of light having its own signature spectra. And now I understand that might have been difficult for him to put into words, but he's put other difficult things into words that would, in order to align his magic system with physics and with the way that things work in our world. So to give an example of that, when Kaladin was learning how to use his lashings, I believe he had kind of a mental thought, or an inner monologue moment, where he was talking about how he thought it was weird that in order to decrease his weight by half, he uses a quarter lashing. So he would quarter lash himself up, and that would result in his apparent weight decreasing to 50% of its value. And from a physics perspective, that makes so much sense. You know, if he does a full lashing, then he's completely shifting the vector for the force of gravity. If he does a half lashing, he's taking half of his gravity vector and lashing that. So he's taking half of his weight and putting it in another direction. So a half lashing up would actually completely negate your weight, and you'd be weightless. Or, in the example of a quarter lashing, if you took a quarter of your weight and you directed it upward, it would cancel out a quarter of your weight down, leaving only half of your weight down. So Brandon has a great knack for being able to take something that is, that is real, accurate physics, and putting it into his magic systems. So I think it could have been so much better. And that's kind of my rant. I've got a little bit of another rant with when Navani was looking at the spectrum of, I believe it was tower light. It was either tower light or war light, one or the other. She mentioned how it split into the two spectra of the light that it, of the two parent lights. So if she was using war light, it split and showed the spectrum of stormlight and the spectrum of void light. And that's another thing that I kind of wish he had done differently. In, I think it was Way of Kings, he had the interlude scene with the ardent researchers looking at flame spren and essentially coming up with the idea of the of observation changing the nature of reality, of making a measurement about a flame spren, fixing it into a certain state. And I think it would have been interesting if he had done something similar with Warlight, where it is Warlight. But when you try to make an observation about it, it collapses into being either void light or storm light. And this could have been simply, you know, passing the light through a prism and only getting one of those two spectrum out, and whatever spectrum you got out actually changes the light in the stone into that original light. So if you have war light and you pass the light from that gemstone through a prism and you look at the spectrum that's emitted, whatever you see changes the war light back into either void light or storm light. So it kind of collapses it, because these hybrid lights, because of the intent needed, it seems like that it's almost an unstable state, that it is both void light and storm light at the same time. And so it would kind of make a in a bit of a Schrodinger's cat sort of way, it could make sense that it could collapse into one or the other. That I'm less upset about. I mean, it's still weird that you get two rainbows, you get two spectra from one light source. That doesn't make sense. But I get it. I kind of wish he had done the collapsing waveforms, but what I really wish he had done was describe the spectra of the lights a little bit different. So that's my rant. That's my whole spiel. Agree with me, disagree with me. It is what it is. Like I said, it's a missed opportunity, I would say. It's not like it ruins anything. It doesn't break the immersion, but it is a bit of a missed opportunity for me. So I think that's going to do it for this little time-lapse rant. And we're going to go ahead and jump back into real time. So welcome back for those of you who have not read Rhythm of War, and so you skipped to this point. Welcome back. For those of you who listened to my rant, agree with me, disagree with me, it's up to you. Leave comments below. So in between episodes, there was actually another mountain right here that I leveled down, and there was an island right here that I leveled out, and then here is the area that I wiped out in the time lapse. So it still requires a lot of work underwater that I'll probably be doing at some point. But this right here is going to be my area for Karbranth. I'm going to build up these mountains here, and I'm going to turn, probably starting from there over to there into the harbor. Maybe I'll actually pull it out a bit more. So we're going to have a harbor, and then we're going to have the city leading up to the Palladium, I think is how it's pronounced. I don't know. It's fantasy. I can make pronunciation mistakes. But it's not that far away from where my base is right now. So I thought it would be, a nice, simple area to work in. I did make sure that it was facing, that was kind of tucked into the east, because I wanted to make it make sense in the books. You want to be on the leeward side, which is the eastern, or you want to be on the western side of a mountain, so that would be the leeward side of the mountain, so that way the storms would wash over you. But yeah. So other things that have happened on the server in between episodes, it's been a while since we did an episode. So we did an update to the mod pack. So probably the biggest update is we added the Feruchemy mod, which I'll be honest, I don't really know much about. I haven't played around with it much. I have a metal mind here. If you're on the server and you want to play... Okay, someone was playing. Okay. Anyways, interrupted by chaos lightning. If you want to become a full feruchemist, you would just come over here and press this button. It's tied to a, what are they called? Command block that will give you feruchemy. Or feruchemy. I don't know. I've heard it pronounced both ways. And now it's confused in my mind. The other big update is the create mod. So I've been playing around with the create mod a little bit. I need to do a lot more playing to really trying to figure out how it works and what to do with it and what I would want to do with it. But I know it's kind of become, or it had at least become kind of popular on modded servers. So I thought I would add it and play around with it and see what's going on. But yeah, that's, I think, about it for this episode. I know it really wasn't that much. I'm going to be doing a bit more work on Karbranth. Like I said, I've got to dig all of that out. And then I'm probably going to start laying the groundwork. Oh, now that I'm looking at it, it's going to be a big project. So, anyways, thanks y'all for watching. If you've got any questions or comments, please be sure to leave them down below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I plan on doing more Cosmere videos in the future. I know it's been a while, but yeah, life happens. But thanks y'all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.